The student forgot to add the reaction mixture to the round bottomed flask at 27 degrees Celsius, but instead placed the flask on flame. After a lapse of time, he realized his mistake and using a pyrometer, he found the temperature of the flask was 477 degrees Celsius. So the temperature instead of 27 degrees Celsius is 477 degrees Celsius. What fraction of air would have been expelled out? When we increase the temperature, the air expands. So it means when air expands, some of the air will get out of the flask. The question is that what fraction of initial amount? Okay. So I am emphasizing of initial amount. Only then you will be able to answer it correctly, and that is the main point where students make mistake. So you have to tell the answer as compared to initial amount, not how much fraction it is now. Okay. How do we solve it? And I hope you have understood the question, that the flask is there and the air moved out. How much remained due to increase in temperature? Fraction of total. Okay. Now, first of all, we need to understand which particular law we need to apply here. When it is open flask, air is everywhere and it is at the same pressure because the flask is open. So pressure outside or inside, whether we have increased the temperature or decreased the temperature, pressure is same. So if pressure is same, then in the question, pressure we will make same, that is P. So P will get cancelled out. We will get V1 by T1 equals to V2 by T2 as pressure is constant. So if you don't write the name of the law, remember that you write that as the pressure is constant. Okay. By gas equation, we have V1 by T1 equals to V2 by T2. Now tell me which law it is if pressure is constant. Vandana, correct. Okay, once Shushant, Aruhi, Preeta. Okay, everyone. Good. Ashika. So it is Charles' law. When pressure is constant, we call it Charles' law. Now, initial temperature was 27 degrees Celsius, and that this is another common mistake where students lose marks. They do not convert it to Kelvin. So two mistakes in this question, 2 points where students make mistake. First, they don't convert to Kelvin. Second, that when they calculate the fraction, there they make mistake. T2 will be 273 plus 477. So we got the temperatures T1, T2. We got the volume, initial volume and final volume ratio we got. So remember, this is not the answer, V1 by V2. And you need to think about it, why this is not the answer. Because the question is asking about what fraction of air expelled out, means is outside. Now understand it diagrammatically, then you will understand what I am saying. Initially, suppose the volume of the air was V1 and at 477 the volume became V2. Then if you are calculating V1 by V2, it is actually the fraction which is inside, because V1 is inside the vessel. Actually, this one is outside. This came out, this much came out of the vessel. In the vessel, initially, it was only V1. So if you need to calculate this one, this will be V2 minus V1. Okay, V2 minus V1. So fraction which came out will be V2 minus V1 divided by initial, that is V1. Okay, it means it will be fraction which came out will be V2 minus V1 minus 1. So V2 minus V1, if you calculated, sorry, fraction by V2, sorry, V2. Why? Because it is total V2 and you have to calculate this much is the fraction. So this one will be equal to 1 minus V1 by V2, that is 1 minus 2 by 5, that is 3 by 5. Now why I have taken here V2 minus V1, why have I have taken V2, I am explaining it again. Okay. Initially, the volume of the gas was V1. Then suppose the volume at 477 K became V2. Then the volume which is outside the vessel is V2 minus V1. This one is outside. But V2 minus V1 is how much of whole air? Whole air is still whatever is in V2, not in V1, because now the air has expanded. So V2 minus V1 you will compare with whole volume of the air. Whole volume of the air is V2, out of which V2 minus V1 is outside, V1 is still inside. So the fraction which is outside is V2 minus V1 upon V2, that is 1 minus V1 by V2. That's why it is 1 minus 2 by 5, because V1 by V2 we have calculated as 2 by 5, 300 by 750. Is that clear? Good. Now next question. Shivangi, I can revise the laws again. However, this is a matter of just 10-15 minutes. Have you gone through the laws? Anyway, we will do the questions based on laws, so that will be clear. So we will be doing revision today. Okay. Calculate the temperature of 4 mole of a gas occupying 5 decimeter cube at 3.32 bar. R is given. Whenever you see any such questions, first you need to find out which formula I am going to use. For that, you need to write what is given, and that is the best way, because there are marks specifically in board examination in 12th. If you get a numerical in chemistry, you have to write it like this: given, okay, number of moles. And remember, if you just write this in 12th, strangely you get 1 mark, even if you don't do anything. Okay, 1 or 0.5 mark depending on how many marks the question carries. So N is equal to 4 moles. 5 decimeter cube means it is the volume, and decimeter cube is actually the liters. 5 liters. Same thing. At 3.32 bar means pressure is given 3.32 bar. Gas constant is given 0.083 bar. Decimeter cube is same, liter, Kelvin inverse, mole inverse. Now remember, whenever we use pressure in bar, the gas constant unit has to be in bar liters. Whenever we use the pressure in ATM, the gas constant will be 0.0821 bar, sorry, ATM liter per mole per Kelvin. So remember the value. If it is in ATM, R will be 0.0821 ATM liter per Kelvin per mole. If it is bar, then it is 0.0831. Here it is given in the question 0.083, but actual value is 0.0831. It will be bar liter Kelvin inverse mole inverse. Okay. If it is pressure in Pascal, then R will be 8.31 joule per Kelvin per mole. So the values you have to use of gas constant will ensure that your answer is correct. If you use wrong value, your answer will be wrong. So you have to be cautious here. Common mistake by students. No, Divya, one ATM is not equal to one bar. So in one ATM, it is 0.0821. There is difference. 0.0821 and 0.0831. Okay. So write these values so that you don't make mistake and memorize. In your examination, the value of R might not be given. If your teacher is liberal, only then he or she will mention these values. In 11th, usually teachers don't give these values. In 12th, you will have. So in 12th, because there is a standard in such questions, it is must to give the values. So there you don't need to bother about it. But so when it is given and you have to calculate the temperature, so which particular formula we should use? Good, Karan. Ashi, good. Yes, good. Rita, correct. Vanna, Shashwat, Devansh, Arohi, good. Shashwat, good. Okay. So we will use the formula PV equals to nRT. Everything we know, substitute the value and get the answer. Yes, Preeta and one more student had given me the answer. Yes, Preeta, good. So 50K, that is 50 Kelvin, will be the answer. Remember the units. Don't write 50 degrees Celsius, which will be wrong. So use the formula, get the answer, and pay attention to units. Next question. Calculate the total number of electrons present in 1.4 gram of dinitrogen gas. Now this question is given in this chapter, but it is actually of first chapter. You have to calculate the total number of electrons present in 1.4 gram of dinitrogen. So anyway, I want to check whether you remember that or not? Can you tell me the answer? Calculations are very easy. You even don't need to write. You will be able to answer. You can do the calculation in your mind. Okay, Shashwat, okay, Vita, no, Ashi, yes. Slight mistake. Okay, I'm giving you a hint. Okay, first calculate the number of moles of nitrogen given mass upon molar mass, and molar mass of nitrogen, remember, is 28, not 14. Now calculate the answer. Many answers I am getting that molar mass of nitrogen is 14. Okay, Devansh, yes, I'm telling you who have given me the correct answer. Okay. Ashi, Arohi, I think check the par, otherwise it is correct. No Rashi, no Mac, no Pita. Tuhina, yes. Rashi, now yes. Mac, no. Okay, Shivangi, that is not correct. Okay, 10 to the power, I think maybe I'll check. Otherwise, those who do not have 4.21 as answer, yes, or multiple that. Okay, anyway, I'm explaining it. Okay. First, you calculated the number of moles. From number of moles, you will get number of atoms. Okay, or number of molecules first. Multiply the number of moles by Na. So moles to number conversion is just you multiply by Na. So you got the number of molecules. Now in one molecule, how many electrons are there? N2. One nitrogen atomic number is 7, means 7 electrons. Two nitrogens will have 14 electrons. So multiplied by 14. Number of molecules, one molecule has 14 electrons, then 3.011 into 10 power 22 molecules will have 3.011 into 10 power 22 into 14 electrons. Okay, so many answers were not considering the number of electrons correctly in the molecule. So the path for calculation, as I always say, if you are confused, draw the path. You have to find the electrons. What you have mass, 1.4 grams of nitrogen gas. From here, you get the moles. Now, you can move reverse also. How electrons you can get? To get electrons, you need to get number of atoms or number of molecules. Okay. So if you get number of molecules, even then you can get number of atoms, because one molecule N2 has 14 atoms. So molecules, you will multiply by 14, you will get electrons. To get number of molecules, you need to have moles, because moles you will multiply by Na, you will get molecules. How you get moles? Moles you get given mass upon molar mass. So given mass upon molar mass gave you number of moles. You multiply it by Na, you got the number of molecules. You multiplied it by 14, you get the number of electrons. So unless you can draw the path, you will not be able to solve the questions. Remember, you can do the questions, you can cram the way, but if you are not able to draw the path, it means if there is any tricky question, you won't be able to do it. So learn to draw the path. First write what is given, what you have to find out. Practice all these questions today only after the class. Next, how much time would it take to distribute one Avogadro number of wheat grains if 10 to the power 10 grains are distributed each second? This one is just math, nothing else. Chemistry is just how many grains will be there in one Avogadro number. That much is the chemistry. Rest is math, simple math. Tell me the answer. No, Arohi. Yes, that will be good, but even if you tell me in seconds, I will understand that you got the okay question. Yes, Tuhina, correct. Preeta, correct. Arohi, just check the exponent part. No, Shashwat. Ashi, correct. Karan Joshi, correct. Arohi, still slight mistake. Arohi, Shivangi, correct. Mahak, divide it correctly. This is simply exponents and powers, which you have been doing from your 7th, 8th grade. Yeah, it should be, but you divide it by correct. Okay, so the concept is clear, Ashi. Yeah. if we calculate in second, you have to divide 6.022 into 10 power 23 by 10 to the power 10. So how could it be 10 power 12? So many students sending me answer as 10 to the power 12. And I am really keen to know, how do you get 10 to the power 12? Don't make such mistakes. This is simple unitary method you have applied. The question says that you have to distribute one Avogadro number wheat grains at the rate of 10 power 10 grains per second. So if you apply unitary method, you will say 10 to the power 10 grains are distributed in 1 second. Hence 6.022 into 10 power 23 grains will be distributed in 6.022 into 10 power 23 divided by 10 power 10 seconds. Then obviously you can convert it to minute, hour, day, years. Okay, just let me check. Okay, if it is in minutes, then yes. Okay, in that case, you have to send me the unit because I asked in seconds. So in years, it will be 1.9096 into 10 power 6 years. Next question. Calculate the total pressure in a mixture of 8 gram of dioxygen and 4 gram of dihydrogen confined in a vessel of 1 decimeter cube at 27 degrees Celsius. Value of R in bar is given. Devansh, it is not that it is preferred in years. The answer is in years because in seconds, minutes, hours, it will be too large quantity. Okay, that's why it has been converted into years. Okay. So even in years, if you see it is 10 to the power 6 years. If 10 to the power 10 grains are being distributed per second, even then it will take these many years, million years, approximately 2 million years. Then think if we write in terms of hours or minutes, seconds, it will be too large quantity. That's why it is mentioned in years. So we have to calculate the pressure. Again, the same thing, you will write what is given. Okay. Mass of oxygen, mass of hydrogen, volume of the vessel 1 decimeter cube equals to 1 liter, and value of R. Bar decimeter cube remember is the same thing as liter. So whether you write liter or decimeter cube, it is same thing. And you have to calculate the total pressure. P total you have to find out. Then here there are two gases. The total pressure as per Dalton's law will be sum of partial pressures of oxygen and hydrogen. So it means P total will be P O2 plus P H2. That is N1 RT plus or NO2 you can say, or NH2 RT. Okay. It means NO2 plus NH2 RT. This is what you have to calculate. Number of moles of oxygen plus number of moles of hydrogen multiplied by RT, that will be P total. How do you get the number of moles of oxygen? It means it will be equal to WO2 divided by 16, that is molar mass of O2, plus WH2 divided by molar mass of H2 RT. It means it will be 8 divided by 16 plus 4 divided by 2. 16 is the, sorry, oxygen. 32 plus 4 divided by 2. 4 is mass of hydrogen, 2 is molar mass of hydrogen, into R, that is 0.083, into T, temperature is 27, means 300 Kelvin. Once you solve it, you will get the answer. So it's like this. You can calculate the way I have calculated. That will be the easier way, okay? Easier to understand. These solutions are years, 8-10 years old. So the method I am telling you is rather easier. Because you will write as per Dalton's law, the total pressure will be sum of their partial pressures, means sum of partial pressures of oxygen and hydrogen. What answer did you get? Yes, Rashi, I'll explain again. Okay. What we are doing here, we have a mixture in a vessel container. We have oxygen and hydrogen. Oxygen will exert some partial pressure. Hydrogen will exert some partial pressure. Now, at room temperature, they don't react. Don't think that they will react and produce water. In atmosphere, in normal air, we have both oxygen and hydrogen. Hydrogen and oxygen combine when there is a spark, maybe at very high altitude. And due to that spark and lightning, at that time, oxygen and hydrogen can combine to form water. Normally not. The total pressure, P total, as per Dalton's law, will be sum of these two partial pressures. And partial pressures we can calculate by using the gas law. Okay. Okay, I think there was something I didn't consider, because partial pressure we will consider from this one. Okay, so P will be nRT by V, not nRT only. There I didn't write V. Okay. That won't make any difference, but because the vessel volume is 1 decimeter cube, but you should write. So PO2 will be NO2 RT by V. Volume is 1 liter, 1 decimeter and 1 decimeter cube of 1 liter is same, plus NH2 RT by P, using this formula. It means it will be NO2, or you can take RT by V common, NO2 plus N H2. Now NO2 is number of moles of oxygen, and moles you calculate, moles are given by given mass divided by molar mass. Is this clear now? Why I have written NO2 as WO2 by MO2. So it means NO2 will be equal to mass of oxygen divided by molar mass of oxygen. And H2 will be mass of hydrogen divided by molar mass of hydrogen. So if I substitute these values, I'll get P total equals to R is 0.083, temperature is 300, divided by volume is 1, and sum of NO2 and NH2 will be 2.25. Okay. Okay, next question. Payload is defined as the difference between the mass of displaced air and the mass of the balloon. Very important question to enhance your knowledge and clear the concept. And usually it appears in your half yearly examination. Payload is defined as the difference between the mass of displaced air and the mass of the balloon. Okay, when we say mass of the balloon, remember it is both mass of the balloon plus the air inside it. Okay, displaced air is equal to its volume. So suppose I have balloon, so the air which it will displace will be equal to its volume. Whatever volume it has occupied, it has displaced that much air. So if I get the volume of the balloon, that will be equal to the volume of gas or air displaced. After that, I have density of air given. So if density and volume given, I can obtain mass of air. Why I need mass of air? Because according to the question, payload is difference between the mass of displaced air. So I got mass of displaced air and the mass of balloon. Okay, mass of balloon will also have the mass of gas. 100 kg is filled with mass of gas and mass of balloon. So mass of balloon itself is 100 kg. So even if there is no air in the balloon, the mass of balloon is 100 kg. But it is filled with helium. So helium also will have some mass. The parameters given about helium, that pressure is given, temperature is given, and volume anyway you know, because you have already calculated the volume. Radius is given 10 meter. So volume of the balloon will be equal to volume of the air displaced. From you got the mass of air. Volume of balloon you already know. From that you can calculate the volume of helium also. That will also be same. Okay. And pressure, temperature, volume you know, R you know, PV equal to nRT. You can get the number of moles of helium also, and you can get the mass of helium also. So what you can get mass of air, and you can get mass of balloon. Okay. Here I am writing empty. When balloon is empty, then its volume is, oh, sorry, mass is 100 kg. So mass of balloon will be total mass. Mass of empty balloon plus mass of helium. I'll have the difference of it according to the question. Difference of it is payload. I have to calculate payload because question says calculate the payload. When a balloon of radius 10 meter, mass 100 kg is filled with helium. So outline I have described. Now understand the solution. Volume of balloon will be 4 by 3 pi r cube. Math, you know that volume of a sphere is 4 by 3 pi r cube. R is given, radius is given 10 meter. So you substituted the values pi 3.14 or 22 by 7, whatever you wish, and 10 cube, you get the volume of the balloon. Mass displaced, we know that density is given by mass over volume. Density of the gas is mass of the gas divided by volume of the gas. From here, we can get the mass that will be equal to volume into density. That is volume, and 1.2 kg per cubic meter is the density given in the question. So we got the mass of displaced air. Now we need to get the mass of helium present in the balloon, because mass of empty balloon we already know it is given 100 kg. So mass of gas present we can calculate. Okay, moles first. So how we can get mass of helium? For that, first we will calculate the moles of helium. Once we get moles, after that we will apply the formula moles equal to mass upon molar mass. From here we will get mass equals to mole into molar mass. We will apply this formula after getting the number of moles. So N is PV upon RT from gas equation. We substituted all the values because pressure is given, volume we have calculated, pressure is given, R is given, temperature 27 degrees Celsius given. So we calculated the number of moles of helium gas. From here, we applied the formula mass equals to mole into molar mass, and we got the mass. The moles we obtained 279.11. We will multiply this by the molar mass of helium. Molar mass of helium is 4. So number of moles we obtained, we multiplied that by the molar mass of helium. We got the mass of helium present in the balloon. So total mass of the filled balloon will be mass of empty balloon, that is 100 kg, plus mass of the helium what we obtained. So here there is some, I think, printing mistake here. It should not be, it should be 1116.4 kg. So we added 100 kilogram, that is empty mass, and the mass of helium. We got the total mass of balloon. Difference of this is payload. We subtracted the mass of balloon from the mass of displaced air and got the payload as answer. Any confusion, ask. Good. Again, go through the question, understand the question, what it says, and try to find the path, recall the path I followed to find the payload. Okay, Ashi, I'll explain. So according to question, payload is equal to mass of air displaced minus mass of filled balloon. I am writing filled balloon so that there is no confusion. Although in the question it is written only mass of balloon, but it doesn't make any sense because in the question it is given the mass of balloon only is 100 kg and helium also has the mass. So if it is only mass of balloon, you will put 100 kg. There is no need of having helium or calculating anything about helium. So that doesn't make any sense. That's why you need to understand that payload is mass of air displaced minus mass of filled balloon. Mass of displaced air can be calculated by the mass of volume of the displaced air. So if this is the balloon, its radius is given as 10 meter. Now remember, it is given radius 10 meter. It means the question is telling you the balloon is spherical. That's why radius is given there. So from this radius, you can calculate the volume of this balloon. The moment you got the volume of the balloon, you can get the mass of air because density is given. Density is mass of air divided by volume of air. From here, you can get mass of air. Volume into density, and volume you have calculated. Density is given. So volume you have calculated, density is given. You can calculate mass of displaced air. Okay. Why? Because volume of the balloon is equal to volume of displaced air. So instead of writing air, I'll write volume of displaced air. Why? Because volume of displaced air by the balloon will be actually equal to volume of balloon itself. So we got the volume of balloon. From that we got the volume of displaced air. From volume of displaced air we got the mass of displaced air. So once we got the mass of displaced air, it means the first part to calculate the payload has been calculated. Mass of air displaced we have calculated. Now the remaining part is we need to calculate mass of filled balloon. Mass of filled balloon will be sum of the mass of empty balloon plus the helium gas inside it. So the mass of empty balloon is given 100 kilograms. but we need to calculate the mass of helium inside the balloon. But helium will also have the same volume what we have calculated. Volume of helium gas is also same. So if we know the volume, we can calculate the number of moles of helium from the data given. Pressure of helium is given, temperature of helium is given, and gas constant value R is given. So if we apply PV equals to nRT, P is known, given, V we have calculated, N is to be calculated, R is given, temperature is given. So N equals to PV upon RT. We substitute all these values. P is 1.66 bar. Volume we have calculated. R is 0.083. Temperature is 273 plus 27 in Kelvin, that is 300 Kelvin. Once we get the number of moles, from number of moles, we apply the formula mass upon molar mass. From here, we will get the mass of helium will be equal to moles into molar mass. So whatever moles you have calculated here, N, you will multiply that by 4, because 4 is molar mass of helium. And you will get the mass of helium also. So now you have the mass of empty balloon and mass of helium inside it. You will have total mass of the balloon. So now you got the second part also. Sum of these two will give you mass of filled balloon. Subtraction will give you the payload. That is the definition of payload given in the question. Is that clear? Next question. A mixture of dihydrogen and dioxygen at 1 bar pressure contains 20% by weight of dihydrogen. Calculate the partial pressure of dihydrogen. Again, the similar type of question. Here we have a container. We have dihydrogen and dioxygen, H2 and O2. The total pressure is 1 bar. 20% by weight dihydrogen. It means 80% by weight, by mass, will be oxygen. We have to calculate the partial pressure of dihydrogen. But partial pressure, we have to have the mole fraction, and for mole fraction, we need to know the mole at least. Okay. So the first point is to calculate the number of moles in such question. Okay, to get the mole fraction. So we will consider that, assuming that, we will write assuming that the mass, total mass of the mixture is 100 gram. Why 100 gram? Because it is given hydrogen is 20% by weight, by mass. So we will consider 100 gram, then 20 gram will be hydrogen, 80 gram will be oxygen. And we can convert mass into moles by dividing them by their molar masses. So number of moles of hydrogen will be its mass divided by molar mass. For hydrogen, mass is 20 gram, molar mass is 2. So you get 10 moles. For oxygen, mass is 80 grams and molar mass of oxygen 32, 2.5 moles. Now when we have the number of moles, we can calculate the mole fraction. So mole fraction of hydrogen will be number of moles of hydrogen divided by total number of moles. That is 10 divided by 10 plus 2.5, 0.8. Now, mole fraction of oxygen will be 1 minus 0.8, that is 0.2. You don't need to calculate. Fraction is always out of 1. We know that. Okay. So if it is out of 1 and 1 is 0.8, the other one will be 0.2. Now we apply the law of partial pressure. That is, partial pressure is equal to mole fraction multiplied by total pressure. Ti is equal to Xi P total. Means PH2 will be equal to XH2 P total. Okay. So we will apply there. It is given that total pressure is 1 bar. So if total pressure is 1 bar, then applying the same formula, partial pressure of hydrogen will be its mole fraction X H2 multiplied by total pressure 0.8 multiplied by 1, that is 0.8 bar. Similarly, for oxygen, it will be its mole fraction multiplied by total pressure, but you have been asked only to calculate partial pressure of hydrogen. That will be the answer. If you would have been asked the partial pressure of oxygen, you would say the partial pressure of oxygen would be XO2 P total. That is 0.2 into 1, that is 0.2 bar. And you can check that the sum of these two, 0.2 and 0.8, is 1, and that is the total pressure given in the question, 1 bar. Yes, Shashwat, Rashi, correct. Shivangi, Rashi, correct. Good. This question is very simple. The question says, what would be the SI unit of quantity? This one. So you will write the units of all these. Write the unit of pressure, volume, temperature, and mole, like this. Pressure is Pascal or Newton per meter square. So 1 Pascal you say, or 1 Newton per meter square, it's same thing. Volume square means square of meter cube. Temperature square means square of Kelvin. Moles unit, mole, MOL. So this will be the SI unit of this quantity. You simplify it, that will be the answer. Newton meter to the power 4 Kelvin square per mole. That's what you need to do. That's it. Next question. In terms of Charles' law, explain why minus 273 degrees Celsius is the lowest possible temperature. Why we can't have, why it is not possible to have temperature, even theoretically, temperature less than minus 273 degrees Celsius. That is 0 Kelvin. Why it is so that we cannot have temperature less than 0 Kelvin? Yes, absolute 0, Arohi. I am looking for the answer. Yes, Sashi, correct. Okay. Now, if we understand it, at 0 Kelvin or minus 273 degrees Celsius, volume of the gas becomes zero. Volume of the gas will become zero. All gases will liquefy at this temperature. This is because all gases get liquefied before reaching the temperature of minus 273 degrees Celsius. Hence, minus 273 degrees Celsius is the lowest possible temperature. Okay. And why I am saying so? Because as per Charles' law, V by T is constant. That is, V by T is equal to K. V is equal to K T. If T is 0 Kelvin, minus 273 Celsius means 0 Kelvin, volume is 0. And volume of gas will become 0. It means it has liquefied. It means its volume is 0. But volume cannot be less than 0. Volume cannot be negative. The lowest possible value for the volume is 0. Hence, temperature cannot go beyond 0 Kelvin. That is less than minus 273 degrees Celsius. Is that clear? Yes, Arul, Karan, good. Yes, Divya, very good. Okay, good. So, next question and the last question, because the last question in NCERT is not in your syllabus now. So, this one is the last. Critical temperature for carbon dioxide and methane are given. Which of these has stronger intermolecular forces and why? Similar question we have done about ammonia, okay, when we did the lecture part, theory part. Shashwat, yes, mathematically that is correct. Obviously, we can't have 0 in the denominator. Okay, so that value is not defined mathematically. But here, because we don't write in terms of mathematical terms, so that's why it is better to say that all gases get liquefied, and that's why the temperature below that is not possible. Because if you say that that is not defined, something like that, and the teacher is specifically of chemistry, not of math, he won't or she won't understand what you are talking about. Okay, so in this case, critical temperature for carbon dioxide and methane are given. So draw the temperature line, and here you have for carbon dioxide 31.1 degrees Celsius. No, sorry. Yes, and for methane minus 81.9 degrees Celsius. Question is, which of these has stronger intermolecular forces and why? So this is something related to critical temperature. Although this question also should not appear, because ultimately the underlying reason here is liquefaction of gases. And that is not in your syllabus. But still, it can be asked, not directly, indirectly. Okay, the correct answer. Now, yes, Sashi, correct explanation. So if we suppose we are at a temperature of 50 degrees Celsius, suppose, and we move down, start moving down. When we start moving down, CO2 will get liquefied if we move down to 0 degrees Celsius, suppose, because 0 degrees Celsius is less than 31.1 degrees Celsius, and the critical temperature of CO2 is 31.1. Below it, it can be liquefied. So CO2 liquefied. But CH4 is still in gaseous form. You can easily say which one has stronger molecular intermolecular forces. CH4 is still gas. It means the intermolecular forces are negligible. CO2 got converted to liquid. It means it has greater intermolecular forces. That's why it got converted to liquid at a higher temperature. Otherwise, it would have not got converted to liquid. So on that basis, what we need to remember and what you need to write a statement, that statement is this one. Higher the critical temperature, more easily the gas can be liquefied. This is what we have seen on the temperature line. CO2 had higher critical temperature, that's why it was liquefied first. Okay? That is, greater are the intermolecular forces of attraction, hence CO2 has a stronger intermolecular force than CH4. So you have to write exactly in the same way what your teacher will be expecting from you.